Hello, poets. This is Mrs. Palmisano here to help you write your menu poem. To me, there's two parts to this poem. One thing we have to think about is who our activist is going to be or what our injustice is going to be. And then also, which text are we going to structure our poem as? So I like to brainstorm right in my poetry collection document in Google Classroom. And again, I kind of broke it up into two different parts. So I'm first going to brainstorm which social activist or injustice I'll be writing about. Now, you all researched a social activist, and so it might make a lot of sense for you to include that activist in your brainstorm. I, of course, did not get the chance to research anybody specifically, but some activists that I'm interested in that I already know a lot about are Rigoberta Menchú and Maya Angelou. So those two activists I'm really interested in. I also could do social activists in general if I don't want to be that specific. Or I could write about an injustice that I've actually experienced. So maybe like gender discrimination. The second part would be which text structure will I use? So for this, I'm thinking more structures that tend to have a really clear structure and also are kind of shorter in length. So I might use a dictionary definition, a recipe, a grocery list, ingredients list, menu, or instruction manual. So those are some of the ideas that I had, because all of those texts have a very specific structure that I can use as a muse in my poem. So for my final answer for what I'm going to give a try today is a recipe for how to make a social activist. Now, if I were going to choose Rigoberta Menchú or a specific activist, I would then need to decide which perspective I wanted to write the poem from. Do I want to write it from her perspective, or should I just write a poem about her? So that's something to think about if you chose a specific person. So now, next, what belongs in a recipe? So I know a lot about recipes, but just for the heck of it, I Googled it just to make sure that I had all the different parts. So if you chose a dictionary definition, you might want to Google that to just remind yourself of what are the different parts. So the first thing that I will need to include in my recipe is, of course, the item itself, right? So what I'm making, which for me would be a social activist. Then the next part is serving size. Maybe for me, I want to say it's going to feed the whole world, because activists tend to do that, right? They tend to have an impact, a very large impact. For ingredients, wow, I could have a lot of ingredients, so there's a lot to think about with this one. But just off the top of my head, I could say injustice and courage, sweetness, perseverance, etc. And I could keep, I always spell perseverance wrong. And I could keep going with that. Of course, too, because it's a recipe, I need to have measurements on there, like a half a cup of injustice or a dash of courage, things like that. And then I have to have the directions. And that's where I could get maybe more creative with, well, what are you supposed to do with that 1 cup of injustice, and really use some describing words. And then lastly, I need a so what at the very end. Now, a normal recipe might not have much of a so what, but all poems have a so what. So I will have to think about that. Oop. So perhaps something like serves the whole world. Oops. Something that really ties up my poem at the end. All right, well, wish me luck. Good luck to you, and thanks for watching. We'll see you later.